Hey, everybody, Scott Luton with Supply Chain Now as we continue our coverage at what is the center of universe for all things supply chain, at least this week. That's Gartner Supply Chain Symposium here in beautiful Orlando, Florida. And I'm joined here by my newest best friend, Mac McGary, the Chief Sales Officer with Eyelit Technologies. Mac, how you doing?
Pretty damn good.
All right. I like your style already, my friend. So Mac, we were talking pre-show a little bit, and even though you kind of grew up in Colorado, you've been out in beautiful California, Pacific Palisades at that for what, 30 years?
Yeah, a long time. Got
Okay.
married, started digging roots, and now it's hard to leave. It's where the
Bet.
ocean meets the sea, so it's a pretty idyllic place.
And I've heard, I've never been, don't tell anybody that. Can't wait to go, but I've heard so much about just even folks that have been there forever. They wake up one morning, look at the weather, and they're just grateful all over. Is that
That's right.
what it's like?
Yeah, you have mountains and contexture and green hills, but yeah, the blue ocean
Yeah.
and being that ocean breeze changes the weather, changes your mood.
Oh, and I bet I'm a big food nerd. I bet the food is delicious and you can get about everything, anything you want in California.
Good food and a lot of vegan, a lot of gluten-free restaurants.
Outstanding.
It's important you have your salads and your fruit and nuts.
Hey, I love it.
Used to be people used to tease me about being in California, the land of the fruit and nuts. And now I'm saying it's a staple diet for all of us.
Oh, and of course, the almond industry, which is known globally.
Label consumer of water, but yeah, exports to the world.
That's right. Okay. So let's, we're recording this at the end of day one of Gartner Supply Chain Symposium here in Orlando. I bet my hunch is you've already had a flurry of intriguing conversations and sessions.
It started at breakfast at 8:30, and I had a cross section of people from food industry to pharmaceutical to aerospace, and they all said, "Why can't we have boring?" They said the world is changing so much, and then of course they brought up tariffs and chaos, right? And some people were saying they embrace it and love it, and other people were saying it's just too much. It's stressful. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, and you know what? That probably came from a bunch of senior leaders is my hunch. But you know what? The whole team, no matter your role, no matter your functional area, we all feel that pressure from these ever-changing, highly disruptive times. Boring does sound really appealing, huh?
Imagine that.
Imagine that. What else, before we talk about some other pain out in the marketplace, what else really sticks out in terms of what you're hearing here at Gartner?
Well, I love the keynote speech, at 10 o'clock. They talked about divergence and uncertainty and, pretty much how to make uncertainty your friend. And it talked about buying behaviors and people's thoughts about AI, but really very pragmatic action points for everyone to embrace and learn something new. And I thought, man, does he work for us? Because that's our pitch.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. We're going to talk more about that in a second. What a couple other common themes I heard from the keynote was prepare for longer uncertainty, more and more uncertainty, right? For the long haul, no flavor of the month here, unfortunately. And then there was three strategic calls to action that I think the keynote delivered here today. And one of them that really resonated with me is make the investment in how modern day supply chain technology or modern day supply chain happens, especially from a technology standpoint, but with a big focus on change management and an optimized change management approach, and even yet, big focus on the team and what their capabilities are and where that intersects with the vision.
Right.
And there's a certain practicality to that at least I took away. Mac, did you take similar thoughts away from?
Yeah. And some people feel threatened by AI, but AI is going to make planners more productive.
Yeah.
And they're going to make better decisions. They're going to be informed, and we're going to be able to collect data real time,
Yeah.
harvest that data, put it into good software, leverage AI, and then, of course, make the job the tedious part. If you're in procurement, you have all these emails and customer contracts. Now you use AI to ingest it and simplify it for you.
Yes.
So there might be fewer planners in the future, but they're going to be more powerful, and they're going to get their job done. And they're going to have a kudos because now, as the keynote said, supply chain is the advantage.
Yeah.
And every CEO wants to look at growth and looks at risk. He's really saying, how do I manage my supply chain?
Matt, good stuff. Sounds like you enjoyed the keynote as much as everyone else I've been talking to. I want to give a big shout out, Ken Chadwick with Gartner, home run stuff. And folks out there, if you took in the keynote, let us know what you think and your key takeaways. But let's get back to the Mac McGary story here. We were talking a second ago about what you're hearing, your finger on the pulse, talking with movers and shakers. Let's talk more about pain because to your last point, where folks were wishing that there was more boringness, right, in supply chain. That's not where we are. The pain of uncertainty and how that um, can paralyze organizations. The pain related to folks struggling how to deploy artificial intelligence, right? How about the pain of trying to find a better, easier, more successful way of making decisions, especially at the velocity that global supply chain's moving? And there's a whole bunch more. What pain out of that or something else you're seeing? What pain really do you see often in organizations today?
Well, it's the uncertainty, but people are asked, what do I do if? And if they don't have the data, they don't have the process and all the systems with the logic that's built in to be able to put together a PowerPoint presentation end of day based on what happened yesterday.
Right.
And then people are going to ask what if scenarios. And if you have any sourcing dependency or customers outside the US, what's the impact? So you all of a sudden can't just use spreadsheets and yesterday's data. You really need to have systems to support it.
Yeah, well said. Systemization, system-driven enterprise. How about speaking of which, Eyelit Technologies, Mac. Now, our intel tells us that your team is bridging that gap, that critical gap between factory level planning, scheduling, and execution.
That's right.
And that gap, it can probably vary based on enterprise, organization. But I know I've been a part of organizations where that gap was massive. We needed the Golden Gate Bridge to bridge it.
That's right.
So how are y'all approaching that?
Well, it's interesting. Joe Bellini, the CEO, and I worked together a couple decades ago, and we had a vision about a common data model that could represent reality based on real-time data to make real-time decisions and move decision rights from once in a while to frequently and automate wherever possible close to the actual event. And if I were to pull out a presentation from the 90s, it's what we're now delivering 25, 20 years later. And it's super cool to kind of bring the team back together and say, hey, we can do it this time. And why? Not only is there a compelling need, we've always said the only thing constant is change. And we said change is getting more rapid. Well, gosh, amplify that, right? But now there's the need, but there's also the technology. So there's a couple things that are curious to me. Some of it, a lot of people have data they don't use. And then, of course, they're not capturing data. And so a lot of this has to be about the ubiquitous capture of data at source to reduce latency, moving to zero latency and events, being able to put it into an engine where you can do what-if simulations. And to the degree that there are obvious answers, make those. And to the degree there are opportunity costs and trade-offs, put them upstairs for the leadership team to say, now I can make an informed decision.
I like that, and make more informed decisions confidently,
Right.
and move on and take the next hill in many ways. It's not that simple, but Mac, supply chain poetry you're speaking here today. I want to circle back to something you shared because y'all had this vision years ago, right? But the technology hadn't quite evolved and matured and become innovative enough like it is now in the golden age of supply chain tech. It reminds me of George Lucas in Star Wars.
Mhm.
He held off so long on making more movies because the technology wasn't right. In fact, if I've got this story right, I'm sure my Star Wars fans will tell me. I think where he started with the original Star Wars, he started there because the technology back in the late 70s allowed him to make that movie in the vision he wanted to. Yeah, skipped over to earlier chapters and then went back to the prequels when the technology evolved. You're kind of like a George Lucas of global supply chain, huh?
I love that. And if you think about it at a detail level, it's around latency and time frame and the fidelity you can store data and make decisions on data. Right now, if you aggregate a bunch of different systems from the ERP world, what you have is data capture here based on this frequency with or without attributes or soft constraints.
Okay.
And then to move it to another system for review. Now you need to be able to manage what we call attribute based, soft constraints, hard constraints, and be able to have that data model, have the integrity to make decisions as the world happens without these gaps. So if you think about it, going back 20 years, there was definitely systems that were finite and separate, and the cost to integrate exceeded the value or was super complicated, or you couldn't synchronize. So the idea of creating a model that's got the dexterity to be able to handle date on a short-term horizon, what do I do next, to how does that pop upstairs to capable to promise to a customer, that's what we've been talking about for a long time.
Right.
But now The innovation is there and you can use it.
Love it. Because let's face it, silos belong on farms, not within our supply chains, right?
That's right.
Okay. And all of that you're sharing with the what you are doing at Eyelit Technologies and kind of the state of the art, state of technology art, right? All that's evolved to enable. You were telling me before we started recording here today, to enable leaders to turn chaos into opportunity.
That's right.
That's what you see.
Chaos and complexity are a friend, and he who can manage that turns a crisis into opportunity. Winston Churchill said it in his own terms, in his own way, but it's true for leaders now. Some people are going to win in this battle of change, and other people are going to lose.
Yeah.
And it comes down to understanding moving data from where it is processed and how it's collected into decision making. And wherever you can delegate those decision rights down based on business rules, you should do it and make it quick.
Love it. All right. So, how fulfilling is it to you and rewarding to that vision y'all had,
Yep.
20, 30 years ago,
Right.
to being now on the cusp of making it happen when industry needs it more than ever? How cool is that?
It's so cool because you could tell your children that 30 years ago, I tried to do something and we found out systems weren't supported. We pitched the vision, and now closer to the end of my career, we actualize it. So you can say to your children, good things don't happen overnight. It's worth the journey, right? There are surprises along the way, disappointments, but ultimately, what a great way to say we can now do what we promised. With capable to promise, allowing giving you resiliency at your fingertips.
Good things come indeed to those who wait. Mac, excellent. Mac McGary, Chief Sales Officer with Eyelit Technologies. Folks, one more piece here. I want to make sure, Mac, that folks can track you down. They may miss you here at Gartner this week, probably by the time we publish the interview.
Yeah.
How can folks track you down and have a similar conversation and kind of examine the art of the possible with you?
Eyelit.ai, and you can get to our website. I'm always available on LinkedIn, and that's still a great communication tool. And then we've got a team here, obviously looking forward to working. And, we've been able to serve complexity in semiconductor, in high tech, in automotive, final assembly, and then aerospace. Wherever people are making things to order, got to make on our collapsed time frame, control costs, know the as built, and improve delivery, and ultimately improve customer satisfaction.
I love that. If you're doing good things in aerospace and automotive, man, you can really do good things in other sectors. Those are some really tough parts of our industry. But Mac, kidding aside, a pleasure to spend time with you here today. Mac McGary with Eyelit Technologies, folks. Thanks for being here. And everyone else is tuned in. Stay with us as we continue our coverage of the place to be for all supply chain leaders and revolutionaries, transformers, right here at Gartner Supply Chain Symposium. You can find all the content at supplychainnow.com.